Have you ever seen a moment so raw it stops a crowd dead in its tracks? Picture this. A decorated Black Navy veteran, minding his own business, gets confronted by an officer who mocks his service and rips a medal right off his chest. The crowd gasps, tension spikes, but then he hits back, not with fists, but with words that cut deeper than any blade, his Navy record. What happens next will leave you speechless. Want to know how one man's truth silenced a bully and changed everything? Stay with me, this is unreal. Let me take you to a sunny afternoon in Seattle, July 31, 2025. The waterfront is buzzing, tourists snapping photos, street performers strumming guitars, the smell of salt air mixing with fried food from nearby stands. It's the kind of day where nothing bad should happen. But life doesn't work that way, does it? Sometimes the worst moments creep up when you least expect them, and for Harold Powell SR, a 68-year-old Navy veteran, this was one of those days. Harold's no stranger to this spot. For nearly 30 years, he's been a fixture on Pier 55, sitting in his wheelchair, playing music for passers-by. His fingers dance over his guitar strings, his voice rough but soulful, pulling in tips from folks who stop to listen. He's not just a performer, he's a survivor. A black man who served his country in the Navy, who took a hit from a drunk driver in '91 that left him disabled, who's fought through systemic injustice and personal loss to keep showing up, day after day, with a smile. People know him, they love him, he's part of the waterfront's heartbeat. But today, something's off. Harold's playing his usual set, a mix of blues and old, school Motown, when a guy, let's call him Greg, starts eyeing him from across the pier. Greg's 32, white, wiry, with a chip on his shoulder you can feel from a mile away. He's not here for the music. He's here for trouble. Harold doesn't know it yet, but this moment's about to turn his world upside down. Greg's pacing, muttering to himself, clutching a bag slung over his shoulder. He's got a history. Back in 2020, he made headlines for plowing his car into a voter registration tent in Florida, claiming it was his duty. Yeah, that kind of guy. Unpredictable, angry, and today his sights are locked on Harold. Why? Because of a patch on Harold's wheelchair, one he's worn proudly for years, a Navy insignia, a symbol of his service. To Greg, it's a lie. He's convinced Harold's faking it, guilty of stolen valor. No proof, no reason. Just a gut feeling fueled by something ugly. The crowd's starting to notice. A few tourists pause, sensing the shift in the air. Harold's strumming slows as Greg steps closer, his voice cutting through the music like a knife. Hey, you, show me your ID, he shouts, loud enough to turn heads. Harold glances up, confused but calm. He's dealt with hecklers before. Sir, I'm just playing my music. He says, voice steady, but Greg's not having it. You're no veteran, that patch is fake. Prove it. The accusation lands like a slap. People freeze. A mom pulls her kid closer. A guy filming a TikTok pivots his phone toward the scene. Harold's heart rate picks up, but he keeps his cool. He's been through too much to let some loud mouth rattle him. I served in the Navy, sir. I don't need to prove anything to you. His words are firm, but Greg's already spiraling. He steps forward, rips the Navy patch off Harold's wheelchair, and tosses it to the ground like it's trash. The crowd gasps. A woman yells, "What the hell, man?" Harold's jaw tightens. That patch isn't just fabric. It's his pride, his sacrifice, his proof of surviving a system that didn't always want him to succeed. And now it's in the dirt. Greg's not done. He's shouting now, demanding Harold show military ID, his face red with rage. Harold, still calm, reaches for his bag to pull out his wallet. He's got his ID, his proof, but he's also got a small knife in there, something he carries for protection after years of living on the streets. He's not thinking about it, just wants to shut this guy up. But Greg sees the movement, sees the knife, and his eyes light up like he's been waiting for an excuse. He's armed, he screams, and in a flash, he pulls a .45 caliber handgun from his bag. The crowd scatters. Someone screams. Harold's hand freezes on his bag, his heart pounding. He's not reaching for the knife anymore. He's reaching for his life, but Greg's already made up his mind. This is his moment to play hero, to expose a fraud. And what happens next? It's the kind of injustice that makes your blood boil. The air on Pier 55 is thick with panic. Greg's got his gun trained on Harold, who's sitting in his wheelchair, hands raised, eyes locked on the barrel. "Show me your ID," Greg yells again, his voice shaking with adrenaline. Harold's voice is low, steady, but you can hear the edge in it. "I'm not your enemy, man. I served. I'm a veteran." The crowd's holding its breath, phones out, recording every second. A nearby Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife officer hears the commotion and starts sprinting toward the scene, but he's not there yet. Right now, it's just Harold, Greg, and a crowd waiting for this to explode. Harold's mind is racing. He's been in tough spots before: Namira Navy service, dodging danger on the open water, surviving a car crash that took his mobility. But this is different. This is a man with a gun, accusing him of something he's poured his life into proving true. He thinks about his family, his daughter, the community that knows him as the guy who plays music and shares stories of his Navy days. He thinks about the patch, now crumpled in the dirt, and the weight of what it represents. He's not just fighting for his life. He's fighting for his truth. Greg's finger hovers over the trigger. He's screaming about stolen valor, spouting nonsense about how Harold's disgracing real veterans. The irony stings. Harold's the real deal, a man who served when segregation still lingered in the military, who faced racism on and off the base, who came home to a country that didn't always honor his sacrifice. But Greg doesn't know any of that. He's too busy playing judge and jury. "I'm gonna give you one more chance," Greg says, his voice a mix of bravado and fear. "Show me your ID or I swear." He doesn't finish the sentence. Harold, still calm, reaches slowly for his bag again. "I'm getting it," he says, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Just stay calm." But Greg's not calm. He's unhinged, his eyes darting between Harold and the growing crowd. And then, in a split second, it happens. Harold pulls out his wallet, but Greg mistakes it for something else. Maybe the knife, maybe his own paranoia. And he fires. The gunshot cracks through the air like a whip. Harold slumps in his wheelchair, a red stain blooming across his chest. The crowd screams. A woman drops her coffee, the cup shattering on the pavement. A kid starts crying. Greg stands there, gun still in hand, muttering, "It's all right, everybody," like he's trying to convince himself. He's still shouting about ID, still clinging to his twisted narrative, but the crowd's not listening. They're horrified, frozen, watching Harold fight to stay conscious. The fish and wildlife officer arrives, tackling Greg to the ground and cuffing him in seconds. Seattle police swarm in, recovering the .45 caliber handgun. Greg still yelling, claiming self-defense, but the crowd's videos tell a different story. Harold slumped over, blood pooling, his guitar lying forgotten on the ground. A bystander, a nurse off duty, rushes to his side, pressing her hands against the wound. "Stay with me, sir," she says, her voice trembling. Harold's breathing is shallow, but his eyes are still open, locked on the patch in the dirt. He's not giving up. At the hospital, it's touch and go. Harold's rushed into surgery, the bullet having torn through his chest, narrowly missing his heart. His family, his daughter, his sister, his cousins, gather in the waiting room, praying, crying, raging. They know Harold's story, a proud black veteran who served in the Navy, who survived a drunk driver, who rebuilt his life through music. They know he's a fighter, but this feels like a betrayal. A man who served his country, targeted for it. His daughter, Tasha, is shaking with anger. He didn't deserve this. She tells a reporter outside the hospital he's a hero and that man tried to take everything from him. Word spreads fast. Social media lights up with videos of the confrontation. Hashtags like #justice for Harold trending within hours. The crowd's footage shows everything. Greg's aggression, the patch being ripped off, the shot. People are furious. Veterans groups start posting, sharing stories of Harold's service, his kindness, his resilience. A GoFundMe pops up for his medical bills, racking up thousands in donations. But the question on everyone's mind is, will Harold pull through? And will Greg face justice? Meanwhile, Greg's in custody, facing first first-degree assault charges. Prosecutors are clear. He can't claim self-defense when he provoked the whole thing. His bail's set at $750,000, and his past, especially that 2020 incident in Florida, paints a picture of a man with a history of reckless, violent behavior. But Harold's family isn't focused on Greg right now. They're focused on the hospital room where Harold's fighting for his life, tubes and monitors surrounding him. His Navy patch now taped to the wall by his bed, a reminder of who he is. The city's on edge. Protests form outside the courthouse, demanding accountability. Veterans show up in uniform, holding signs that read "Honor our heroes" and "No more injustice." The crowd's growing, and so is the pressure. But there's something else brewing. Something Harold's about to do that no one sees coming. Something that'll make that crowd go silent and change the game entirely. Days pass, and Harold's still in the hospital, but he's a fighter. Against all odds, he stabilizes. The bullet missed his heart by inches, and though he's weak, he's awake. His family's by his side, and so is the community. Veterans, locals, even strangers who saw the viral videos. They're sending cards, flowers, donations, but Harold's not just thinking about recovery. He's thinking about the moment that put him here, the accusation that cut deeper than the bullet, that he was a fraud, a liar, someone who didn't earn that Navy patch. See, Harold's service wasn't just a job. It was a calling. He enlisted in the Navy in the late 70s, a time when black sailors still faced hostility in the ranks. He served on destroyers, worked in engine rooms, earned commendations for his leadership under pressure. He was there during tense Cold War patrols, keeping ships running when the stakes were life or death. That patch, it's not just a symbol, it's a piece of his soul, and Greg tried to rip it away not just physically, but by questioning his honor. Harold's daughter, Tasha, is his rock. She's been updating the community, posting on X about his progress, sharing snippets of his Navy stories. One post goes viral, a photo of Harold in his dress blues from '85, standing tall, with a caption that reads, "This is my dad. He served, he survived, and he's not done fighting." The post gets thousands of shares, and suddenly, Harold's story isn't just local, it's national. News outlets pick it up from CNN to BBC. People want to know, who is Harold Powell SR and how did this happen? The answer comes in waves. Harold's Navy record surfaces thanks to a veterans group that digs into his service history. He wasn't just a sailor, he was a decorated one. Commendations for bravery during a 1983 rescue operation where he helped save a crewmate from a flooding compartment. A letter of recognition from his commanding officer for mentoring younger sailors. A service record that spans a decade, filled with moments of quiet heroism. The crowd, online and off, is floored. This isn't just a veteran, this is a man who's lived a life of service only to be gunned down for it. But here's where it gets wild. Harold's not content to let the story end with his recovery. He's got something to say. From his hospital bed, he records a video, his voice weak but unwavering. "I didn't serve my country to be called a liar," he says, looking straight into the camera. "I didn't survive a war, a car crash, and now a bullet just to stay quiet. That man tried to take my honor, but he can't take my truth." He holds up his Navy ID, his commendations, his discharge papers. "This is who I am, and I'm not done yet." The video explodes, millions of views in hours. The crowd, virtual and real, falls silent, not out of shock, but out of respect. Harold's not just hitting back with his record. He's reclaiming his narrative. He's showing the world what it means to stand tall, even when you're broken. And he's not alone. Veterans start sharing their own stories of being disrespected, of having their service questioned. The hashtag #HonorOurHeroes trends alongside #Justice for Harold, and the pressure on the justice system grows. Greg's trial is looming, and the evidence is damning. Multiple videos show him as the aggressor, ripping the patch, pulling the gun, firing without clear provocation. Prosecutors argue it's a hate crime, pointing to Greg's history and the racial undertones of his accusations. Harold's family, especially Tasha, is pushing for the maximum penalty. First-degree assault carries a potential life sentence. But Harold, he's got a bigger vision. He wants this to be a wake-up call, not just for Greg, but for a system that lets these moments happen. He's talking to lawyers, planning to speak at community events, even working with veterans groups to advocate for better protections for those who have served. The buildup isn't just about Harold's recovery or Greg's trial. It's about a community waking up. Protests grow louder, with veterans and civilians standing shoulder to shoulder. A local congresswoman gets involved, calling for a federal investigation into hate crimes against veterans. Harold's story is sparking a movement, one that's forcing people to confront uncomfortable truths about how we treat those who have sacrificed for us. And Harold, still in his hospital bed, is at the center of it all, his voice growing stronger every day. But there's one more twist coming, one that'll make the crowd go silent again, one that'll hit you right in the gut. Harold's not just fighting for himself. He's fighting for someone else, someone whose story ties back to that waterfront moment in a way no one could have predicted. It's a month later, and Harold's out of the hospital, back on Pier 55. He's in his wheelchair, guitar in his lap, but he's not playing yet. A crowd's gathered, not tourists this time, but locals, veterans, activists. They're here for a vigil, a rally, a moment to honor Harold and demand change. The air's heavy with emotion, anger, hope, pride. Harold's daughter, Tasha, stands beside him, holding the navy patch, now cleaned and reattached to his chair. Harold takes the mic, his voice rough but strong. "I didn't ask for this," he says. "I didn't ask to be shot, to be called a liar, to have my service questioned. But I'm here and I'm not alone." He pauses, scanning the crowd. "This isn't just about me. It's about every veteran who's been disrespected, every person who's been targeted for who they are. And it's about a kid I met years ago, a kid who reminded me why I keep fighting." The crowd leans in. Harold tells the story of a young black teen he met on the waterfront a decade ago, a kid named Jamal who was homeless, angry, lost. Harold played him a song, shared his Navy stories, gave him a meal. Years later, Jamal found him again, now a Marine proud serving his country. "He told me I saved his life," Harold says, his voice cracking, "and now I'm fighting for him, for every kid like him, for every veteran who deserves to be seen." The crowd's silent, tears in their eyes. Harold's not just a survivor. He's a hero not just for his Navy service, but for the lives he's touched. He ends with a call: don't let this happen again. Stand up for what's right. Honor our heroes not with words, but with action. The crowd erupts, chanting his name. Greg's trial is ongoing, but Harold's already won. He's turned pain into purpose, injustice into a movement, and that Navy patch, it's shining brighter than ever. What would you do if you saw this happen? Comment below. Have you or someone you know faced this kind of injustice? Share your story. Subscribe for more real stories of justice and redemption, and let's keep this fight alive.